Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Commentary as Magic Stream on today, Sunday, February 5th, 2023. I am, as always, Grand Pause.
Big Cheese is probably on a plane. I'm Arcat, and
Uh, who am I again? Ivory Starlight or something?
One day, one day we will get through an intro and no one will make a smart aleck remark, and everyone will just say their names, and it'll
Next
be
time I'll
great.
just. Alright, fine. I'm Christopher Lambert.
Ah, well, there you go. Wait, no, you're not.
You're right, I'm not. My hairline's not that powerful.
Oof. So, we find ourselves this week going back in time. Back over a year, according to the calendar.
calendars don't work that way.
My calendars work that way.
Calendars don't work that way.
My calendars work that way.
Your calendars are wrong.
Your calendars are bad. You're a towel.
Are they mad because they're bad?
Yes. We
No,
had ourselves a fun little experiment. Boy, when was that? It must have been just before.
It was just before
Invitationals.
Everfree.
Oh, it was that early?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
So I think I have to concede that if you're going to, round to the nearest year, yeah, okay, fine, it is a full year.
Yeah.
I looked this up, and I promptly forgot about it.
I mean, we had a lot of time that was consumed with events like Continentals and rebalancing things, and then the Invitationals, which took, a month longer than normal, and then rebalancing more things, and it's been a busy half of 2022. But we still had fun. We got to play some good cards. And in the summer, like I mentioned, we had tried something a little unusual.
Well, it's not exactly an anniversary, but we ran 100. One followed by 2 zeros.
That's right. It was our 100th live/recorded gameplay video, and we felt it fitting to do something other than the aggro v aggro mirror matches that apparently is the only thing we do anymore.
That might have something to do with the number 100?
Yes. And so what could we do with the number 100? Well, we could start every player with 100 action tokens, but I'm pretty certain that a combo deck just wins. In fact, I can guarantee you that any deck that has Miss Main in it can just win.
I mean, this is true, strictly speaking. I'm very annoyed that Twitch chat doesn't have the 100 with an underline emote.
Would be good. We could do, you need 100 points to win.
No. Absolutely not. It's gonna take... How many hours is that going to take? Per game?
A bit. We could do, your main character has 100 power, which is really not meaningfully different from your character has enough power to confront any problem in the game, barring color requirements.
I'm fine with this. I'm going to run Nurturing Nature.
But then you will have 0 power in the face-off. This will be bad.
Look, I didn't say it was a good strategy. I just said I'm fine with this.
Thorax was right there.
Thorax was right there. That's a fair point.
Thorax is a traitor to the Hive. What's your point?
Now, all that being said, I think we went with something that was a little more reasonable and had a bit of precedent. And that is, we decided to explore the Singleton or Highlander format. And in this format, well, Aaron, you want to give a breakdown of how we built our decks and what rule set we used for these games we played against each other?
Well, I mean, sure, but it's not that complicated, I think.
Well, there's two main things that are different here, right?
Well, but it's not that complicated, I think. Okay, so the first thing, and it's important that this is the first thing, is that you can only have singletons. So no 2-ofs, no 3-ofs. I'm going to give a sidelong glance to Puckwudgies because I'm not entirely sure what should occur here other than if you're running this many Puckwudgies, there's a problem.
Puckwudgies are relentless rats. Relentless rats bypass the rules for EDH, so it's fine.
Okay, I guess Puckwudgies are legal then. So you can have all the Puckwudgies you want. But you have to have singletons of everything else.
Right.
The other change is instead of 45 cards, you have to have exactly 100.
Right.
Which is
no more, no
exact where the 100 comes in.
Right. No more, no less. 100 cards in the draw deck. So, 100 unique draw deck cards, 10 unique problem deck cards, and 1 main character who, by definition, is unique. Though not according to the game rules. And we were playing in the Harmony format because, you kind of have to.
Do you kind of have to? I mean, it's much easier to play in the Harmony format.
It would be a bad time with 100 cards if you did not play in the Harmony format. But this is also part of the fun, right? Those of you who are familiar with other card games may notice the similarities between this format and Commander or EDH in Magic the Gathering, and yeah, that's kind of where the idea stems from. But Ponies plays very differently, and certainly hasn't had the supplementary product support that MTG has to further entrench this as like the #1 casual / kitchen table format. So we just kind of gave it a whirl. We built 4 decks, went up against each other, we played every other player once.
It's the round robin thing, yeah.
Yep.
Where 6 total matches. And for some reason, some joker went in there and started naming the things 100.1.11.111.
Wasn't that your idea?
Yes, it was his idea.
I failed to see why I can't call myself some joker here.
He is a joker. Now, this was still different than a standard Commander game in that these were not by default set up to be multiplayer. These were 1v1 matches. And though I think we had experimented at one point in the past with a singleton, like, blitz duel, I don't think we had ever done...
Well, but we don't have the 100 card limit there.
Right, exactly. So this was noticeably different. So
and a blitz also requires the two of you to build something in like 15 minutes, which, no pressure.
Right. We should go back to doing a blitz duel again. That was fun. It just requires setup. Anyway, what the heck did we come up with 100 individual cards?
Well, that's a good question, and we're about to find out, because we never actually revealed the deck list during any of those games.
Maybe
so
time
it's
to do so now.
About high time. Really? Nothing? Okay, fine.
What reference are you making here?
About high time.
Oh, Highlander.
Thank. Okay, fine. I at least got a pity laugh out of that. All right.
Okay, got it.
Okay, so let's take a look at the first one of these. Now, there's a lot of cards here. Like, a lot of cards. So
there are no more cards here than there are in any of your decks, so don't you sit here and try and throw me under the bus.
There are, in fact, so many cards that I have to scroll. Like, I tried to make this fit on one screen, and you can't do it. unless you want cards for ants.
Okay, so this one was me. Student 6 color. The notes I have here are that my first attempt was a little bit of BRB, a lot of bit of Reanimator, and some additional orange, purple, and white control tools, as you might expect, with those two archetypes mashed up. When you have access to all of Harmony, you get to run a lot of fun stuff. And Student 6 seemed like a natural fit, even over something like Paradox Pony, maybe even especially over something like Paradox Pony, because you could guarantee a flip and start gaining counters on it eventually if you needed to. You get to run fun things like Element of Honesty, who I haven't seen in a while, and Minuet for repeated enters play effects, and my favorite reanimation tool in the entire game, which is Element of Generosity, who is just busted. And yes, Blossomforth, my very first attempt at Reanimator back in Canterlot Nights, where you just put the Elements friends into play. That was fun. And you might as well run Birds of a Feather, because what's EDH if you're not playing Krenko, right? Then we got some Alicorns over here. Moon Dancer is always a hit. Spoiled Rich is fun to Portal. I was running Risky Business, which is exceptionally amusing, of course. Make your opponent guess the one singleton card you've ripped out of their deck. Best of luck.
This is just rude.
And then, +1, Saddle Row Storefront. Stack of Suitcases, Wake Up Call, Boutique. Recursion, like it's Reanimator with a little bit of, hey, I'm going to abuse ETB effects.
And a little bit of, well, I guess since I have to run all this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, what are you going to do? Not run Yellow Paraspray?
Run the kitchen sink.
Yeah, you're going to do it.
All right, writing that one down. I need to make a card named the kitchen sink. There's even art for it!
There is.
Yeah, Rarity kicking it backstage.
Yep.
Yeah.
So all that being said, you've got access to a ton of very, very powerful friends and powerful reanimation tools and some pretty annoying resource-based disruption. That's great, right? No, it's bad. The ramp-up time and the lack of access to good entry, which I'll talk about more once we go through all the deck lists, is really brutal. Student 6 can help a bit, but the concept may have been just a bit too greedy given the restrictions that we came up with for our first crack at this format. I think under some revised rules or deck building ideas, you can absolutely play Reanimator or BRB or some, a hybrid of the two. But given the rule set we had going into it the first time, it went 2 and 2. No, it went 1 and 2. Yes, 1 and 2. So, actually, I don't even know if it went 1 and 2.
I'm pretty sure it did, because I'm pretty sure I took the 0 and 3.
Oh, did you? I thought you got me. Maybe not.
Wow. For a first attempt at a format that we've literally never run before, what do you think?
I mean, it was one of those, it's fun when it works and horrible when it doesn't. The deck does not have an alternate game plan. You either get your engine going and you start pumping out big things and then abusing their effects as much as possible, or you just sit there and kind of twiddle your hooves.
Hooves.
So. Okay. That being said, shall we move on to the resident cheater among us?
Yes.
Who's not even here to defend himself?
He's not, so we can just blast him and there's nothing he can say about it.
Alright, okay, so here we go. I'm gonna draw your attention to that card in the upper left corner.
That card is dumb.
That card is very dumb in this format. You know why? Because you draw your 6 cards and you're just like, okay, I'm gonna flip my main, like, right now.
Like every game.
100% of the time. Flawless.
Unless you're running puck wedgies.
Why would you run puck
You're
wedgies?
not running puck wedgies.
You're not running puck wedgies.
Right, but yes. Flip your main just every time. The rest of
Yep.
this looks
Controlling?
depressing.
You can't see how bad it actually gets. Scroll down.
Yeah, we're just looking at less than half the cards right now, and we've already run out of friends. So
Well, yes, but okay, so go home. Just all the go home, like all of it.
no, not all of it. There's no blue in here. Oh no.
What do you mean there's no blue in here?
There is Ultimate Organizers. Okay, I see it now. But then just all those disruptive events, all the disruption in purple, all the disruption in white, then more purple disruption in resources.
Also, have you ever just, ran every good troublemaker alongside it?
I didn't realize it was running this many troublemakers.
What do you mean?
8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So yeah, almost a full fifth of his deck is just troublemakers.
This, like, percentage-wise, Feathers is just like, but actual troublemaker number count-wise, Feathers is like, maybe.
What do you mean only running good troublemakers? Queen Chrysalis is in here.
Both
She
of
does
them.
her job fine.
I
They're not here to be farmed. They're here to prevent your opponent from being able to do anything useful.
I'm just fishing for a hissing.
You already received
Understandable.
your hissing earlier today for something that I don't remember,
I also don't remember that.
but you deserved it.
It's actually kind of amazing how he basically just took the concept and said, I'm just going to run one of every card that everyone hates.
I mean,
As long as it's pink, not pink, as long as it's purple and white, I'll make it work.
And you know what? It kind of did.
and there's just
Yeah, he swept, so...
a little bit blue,
to
a
the,
little bit orange.
well, yeah, because you gotta run Factory Organizer, you gotta run Ultimate Organizers, I mean...
Yeah, it turns out when your main flips turn 1 every single turn and effectively gives you action tokens, that's kind of busted, and I'm going to be having a talk with his parents afterwards.
Also, trading traditions as the starting problem means that you're guaranteed to be able to play any of your 3 rec or lower white cards.
Okay, see, that's just dumb. I'll get on my soapbox about that later.
I mean, I guess there might be an argument to be made for picking orange if you have a Factory Organizers in your hand, but I don't know. I really think you just always call white because that unlocks most of your deck.
Basically.
4, 5, 6, 7, at least, like entry.
Taking 5, 6, 7, not counting friend-based entry. Then you've got Klujtown and Smooth, so that's 8, 9.
Like it's
Citrine Spark is 10. Prim Hemline is 11.
yeah, like
11.
it's not great for the 2 off colors, but there you go. Like
When you have but trading traditions plus a main that's guaranteed to flip turn 1 that doesn't even have to spend action tokens to do it. It's dumb. It's dumb.
disgusting.
Oh wait, 12 changeling distraction.
Oh, yep. Okay. Forgot about that.
Angie.
Angie. Yeah. So this did control things. I don't know why you're surprised to hear this.
There's probably other ways to build it, but the white is obviously very strong because you've got a lot of controlling resources, which was a similar sub theme to what I was doing. But you could go purple and go orange instead, and then rip your opponent's hand apart or keep all their stuff exhausted forever. Or you could go purple and blue and then really make your opponent angry that they can't ever move their things, or they can, and then they just get moved back immediately while you generate a billion action tokens with Daring Do, Poster, and like Read the Manual, the one copy of Read the Manual in the deck.
I mean, you might as well.
You could go yellow and run Zippo, except it won't actually work.
Bit of a
And
shame.
you only have like a week to do that anyway.
Bit of a
Okay.
shame.
Now, this is like a tax-based control, right? We've got forced movement at immediate speed. We've got pay more through things like plaid stripes or Capper Dapper paws or stack of suitcases, all that general stuff. It's like traditional purple-white tax-based control. Not as focused on the movement, but just make everything as expensive as possible, and when your opponent spends action tokens to do something, play a card or take an action that effectively negates whatever they did. That kind of control.
Right. The old control.
Yeah, that's a valid form of control. There's another form of control. Aura.
Yes. So I would like to direct your attention to the pinkness of this deck. It is very, very pink. And you know what pink doesn't like you doing?
Having friends?
Anything. I just want to see what you're up to for the next 4 hours and get in the way and ask questions. Hi.
Go away, Silverstream.
No. What are you doing? I want to see what you're doing.
There are no stairs here. Go away,
No.
Silverstream.
Little tiny stairs all over the place. I see them. I want to know about them. So, yes, all the pink. You know what? You know what sounds terrible? Not being able to get into all your colors. You know what this deck does real well? Gets into all its colors.
All one of them.
All one of them.
Plus maybe a colorless one.
All one of them.
I don't even think there's colorless in here.
There are. And so basically, my strategy is very simple. It's, I'm going to go to Harmony, I'm going to set color to pink, and then I'm just going to pick everything that's good.
Yeah, but you have High Spirit. Well, High Spirits is...
High Spirits is a perfectly valid card because I only need High Spirits and one of your things to flip my main over. And then... honk.
You're not going to say anything about the Slender Pony that you quickly went past?
No.
He'll get there. He'll get there.
No, but just all the pink, like all the annoying. If it's a pink and annoying, then it's good. Also, pink is very good at searching things up. So you'll see there's a... Where's she hiding? There's a torch slung in here somewhere.
Second row in the middle.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
There's a torch slung. There should be a PFF in here somewhere.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, right next to...
Oh, yes. There we go.
Yeah, so I'm going to go searching some stuff up. That's kind of a, neat ability to have, is to just go, digging stuff up when you need it. You'll notice that the previous two lists were both running copies of Gyro, which, yes. But what if I could do that for friends? Also, as Ivory's saying, yes, there is a card in here that doesn't have a name. And this is all part of my master plan for snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. Because with this thing, and this thing, I've made sure to build in a lose condition to my deck. Not a win condition, a lose condition.
If I'm going down, I'm taking you with me. Or at least going out on my own terms.
Correct. And so it's just all the annoying stuff.
Now, the one thing that you have not mentioned is how many pieces of pink friend removal are in this deck?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes. We've got the traditional things going down here too. We got the yellow Parasprite, because of course. I don't know. Why not?
What are you going to do, not run yellow Parasprite in a singleton format?
I'm going to run the Sphinx.
You did run the Sphinx.
I did run the Sphinx. I think I even was in a position to play it against you. Okay, so removal. Removal. Removal.
Removal.
Removal. Removal. This
Yeah,
is just
Magic Blast
funny.
removal. Inky Sense Steals, Sunset Festival Steel. Flop, Food Fight, Rolling Tones, Pinky's Epiphany, Yoink. The old BPOS slash belly flop combo of A Simple Mix Up plus Catch Me. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Here's your invitation. Legitimately running, here's your invitation.
Yes.
Like it's just a thing to do.
Yes.
And that's not even counting all the friends.
No, it's not. I got Taco Tuesday. The only thing I don't have is BPOS for self. I think I was running this. Where is he? Yes, we've even got Exploding Vinyl.
Yes, you do have Exploding Vinyl.
And Hoops.
I missed that card.
Hoops. Lily. Breakdown.
Lyra.
Angie.
Derpy.
Angie.
The other Derpy. And just in case this wasn't enough, we've of course got the Ranpocalypse going, because why not?
Because what are you going to do, not run C Poppy in Mono Pink?
Of course I'm going to run C Poppy in Mono Pink, and I'm going to run Devil Babby in Mono Pink.
Okay, so all that said, you had no entry issues to worry about.
Nope.
You had all these cards, you had all this removal, all this disruption, and you had a means of going out on your own terms. How'd it go?
I think I went 0-3.
Oof.
But the important thing is, I got off on people's business and was asking about stairs for the entire time. And isn't that what really matters?
No, what really matters is you never got to actually use Sphinx.
Yeah, I mean, that is a little bit sad.
But you inflicted psychic damage on me.
Yes, and that's what it's really all about.
Speaking of psychic damage, Ivory.
What? I did nothing out of character.
I know, and that's what made it so frustrating. This was a format of jank and like exploration of a new opportunity to run all these old cards, and it's just hot wings.
I ran old cards.
Because these
and
old
I did
cards are
explore
good.
New territory. I explored new territory of what other blue-pink cards exist outside of core.
It's just hot wings.
It is just Hot Wings. I fail to see the problem here. It's got some of the best stuff. Look,
I mean-
look at this thing. Look at this thing right here. How long has it been since you've seen one of those?
Not as long as you might think. Invitationals last year. Well, the year before.
Even earlier than that, Cheese ran at Harmony Cider Fest.
Oh, that's right. He did.
But no, I mean, I'm looking at the list of. I put this switch on Harmony, and I'm like, this is a lot of cards. I remember some of these. All of the ones I want to run happen to be pink and blue, so I'm just gonna build pink and blue. What can I say? I'm predictable. Also, I don't need your stupid yellow Parasprite.
Not even running any troublemakers.
No, that's space that could be taken up with more aggro.
Still the disrespectful sanctuary construction for the one copy of Fierce Loyalty in your deck and whatever color the center.
See, but this is how much of a bad mannering we're doing here. We're running Gabby. She of 404, Hasty.
That is admittedly incredibly disrespectful, but that is the face that I was making the entire time I was playing that deck. Against that deck, I mean. Hold on, can we go back to Gabby's face? Yes, that was my face.
Really? You weren't doing this face?
Lily.
I mean, it was a little of one and a little of the other. Meanwhile, Ivory's sitting over there just like Joyous Pony.
No, she's doing this face right here.
Yeah, Ivory.
I mean, what can I say? Is it turns out that there's a lot of really stupidly good cards, which when you're facing down someone who doesn't have easier access to stuff that getting something like a Thunder Lane out can be pretty hard for them to deal with.
Go ahead, find an answer to this. I'm sure there's one somewhere in that pile of 90 cards that you've got left.
Angry.
One person found an answer to it. He did it by cheating.
How was that?
I honestly don't remember exactly what. I know that I was close to getting through his wall, but he just started getting points from Mistmane and Photo Finish, and
Uh,
I don't remember if Blackmail was out, but if it was,
that'll do it.
As you do.
and I couldn't find my dilemmas because there's only like 5 out of 100 in there.
Yeah, that's fair. That being said, sure wrecked me. Wasn't even close. Was very disrespectful. What did you grab out of this with Sunset Festival, Ara? Did you manage to play it?
I don't remember. Like, Sunset Festival is not a
I'm running
particular.
Sunset Festival here.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a particularly good bet, but it's funny.
Yeah. And that's the thing that makes this format fun is you can absolutely sit here and try to optimize and try to build a really, really powerful deck. And to a degree, if you want a deck that is at all synergistic with itself, you're going to have to at least go for, some of the more played cards within those archetypes. But you can also just do stupid stuff.
Hi.
I ran Lyra. Do you know how many times in my life I have ever played that card in a game ever? The answer is still 0, but I ran it in the deck.
I think I've seen one of those in play once. We're talking about the old 5-cost Lyra Ultra Rare from Premiere.
Yes, that one. Took up a card slot in my deck.
So basically what you're saying is that at some point the limited rules apply where you're just like, I don't know what to run. This one's got a big number in the corner. Okay, cool.
It's not even that big of a number. It's a 5-cost 4 power. It was one of the premier ultra rares. They weren't power efficient. But it was a one-time per turn cycle consecrated Sphinx effect, so I mean, whatever. It's fine, I guess. So okay. So with all those decks discussed, before I get up on my soapbox, what did you two think?
Honk.
Okay, sure. You honked with Silverstream. The idea of Highlander in MLP in general.
I mean, I think it's an interesting idea. Definitely, probably more geared toward lighter fare, like not high stakes events, but that's okay.
Right. Because
Uh,
you've got the singleton thing, you don't ever really know what you're going to be able to do next turn. Like you don't. It's harder to make a cohesive deck, which yes, that makes it better for lighter fare, which is fine. But you can also sit there and cheese this as hard as you can. See what I did there? With various tutor effects or things like eager and card draw to help you generate what consistency you can find.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's part of why I also went pink, is simply because pink has basically the best ability to generate consistency.
It's true. At least through its friends, right? And actually, you're right, just in general, because you've also got all the card draw.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense. Ivory, any other thoughts to add?
um, I'm just kind of thinking like, how is this a format that we could see being played more often, or is this kind of a one and done thing as it is?
It might be interesting to bring this up. I think with some of the stuff that I assume GP is going to discuss here in a moment, it'd be interesting to see if this works in formats other than Harmony, because physically building one of these things is going to be...
Eh,
I've built EDH decks before. It's not as bad as you think.
yeah. And we had Villain Challenge, which was approaching this kind of level of things.
Well, it was, but Villain Challenge was also talking about decks that were purpose constructed, that were going to be more cohesive by definition.
Sure.
And if we're dealing with Harmony, you do have to keep in mind that getting a hold of some of these cards is maybe not easy unless you've been around for, 10 years.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Of course, a lot of the cards in Harmony, unless you're going for some of the older control styles, because remember, aggro was not always the single most dominant force in, the first four sets of the game. Um,
No, that would be farming.
yeah. So if you're not necessarily going after the control/combo tools, then you might not need a lot of the stuff from the Premier block or its supplements if you're looking to build a more aggressive-minded deck. Maybe.
Maybe.
Okay, do I get to get on my soapbox now?
I've got art for this.
Yes, you do. You used it at the Design a Card panel.
Yes, I did.
Do you have it prepped here
No.
and ready to go?
No,
Okay,
I do not.
got it.
I'm just bringing up the thread of it because that's funny.
I want upsies.
You do want upsies.
Okay, so Ivory brings up a good point. It's a new format. Is it something that we want to consider? Is it something that we think would have repeat value? Personally, yeah, I think so. I think that if there's anything that we've learned over the last year to year and a half, it's that when players are willing to spend time exploring the design space of a new format that they invent, the more time that's spent just looking at it, the more interesting and fleshed out and developed the idea of what this format looks like becomes. We saw that with Adventure, right? For the better part of a year, it seemed like it was basically just Smithers who was looking at, EO forward as a viable constructed format, and so he had a deck all ready to go. And it was his enthusiasm and his communication of this with some of his local players or some other individuals in the community, like when Cursed ran his invitationals with Adventure as a viable format, that really made it take off. And now Adventure is a very popular format to play, I would say. It's certainly, bypassed Harmony as perhaps the second most popular format. So I see no reason why something like Highlander or Singleton or whatever you want to call it, couldn't be the same, with a few caveats. The first one is, with every new format, you're always going to get new broken card synergies, or in some cases, just new broken cards. Remember that main that we looked at in Cheese's deck?
You're thinking that maybe needs to not be
mean,
legal in this format because it's kind of busted.
It's pretty dumb. But that's one example, right? Is that there's some things that when you are exploring a design space that has some alternate deck building restrictions in there, certain cards are going to behave in different ways. And some of them are going to be much worse, and some of them are going to be much better. And in this case, this one happens to be much better. It's not necessarily the only card that you'd want to look at. And there's equally, perhaps a reason to say, hey, maybe some of the ban list that applies to Harmony as a constructed format doesn't necessarily need to apply in Singleton, because the odds of being able to find one of these cards are going to be so low that, if you want to run a combo in your deck and try hunting for these 5, 6, 7 different pieces, go for it. Or is it really going to kill people if you have one paper twi in your deck?
Good luck finding it.
Right?
I mean,
So,
maybe. I think the thing that paper twi provides is possibly even more relevant in this format. The question is simply, can you get a hold of it?
sure, I'm just throwing out names of banned cards, right? Not necessarily saying that.
Right. But this isn't to say that some of the things aren't equally applicable here.
Right. Now, I was having a conversation with Pages who had not played this format, but we were kind of discussing the idea of it. And I think the one biggest objection that I have to the rule set that we used at the beginning is that we went with 100 cards because it was our 100th video, and because the format that we were mimicking also uses 100 card decks. The difference is that game normally has players use 60 card decks. And out of those 60 cards, about a third of those cards are normally the equivalent of entry. And it's about the same for their singleton format.
It's a little bit harder to find 30 cards worth of entry.
Yeah, MLP doesn't have that broad of a card base. And its scaling is different as well, right? Entry is the end-all be-all for MLP. You need to have a way to get into your secondary colors, or you need to be playing monocolor, and you need to have a way to boost your main character's power. And at 100 cards, that's very challenging to do. If we were to take the same ratio of our Highlander singleton format compared to EDH or Commander in Magic, Magic goes from 60 cards to 100 cards. That would mean that we would go from 45 cards to 75 cards. Now, interesting note, I believe 75 cards was the deck size for all of the Villain Challenge decks. That was intentionally done.
Well, that was done partially because all the villains get a few more tokens per turn, and they draw an extra card. And, by the way, they're facing down 3 people that are gaining resources, like, as quickly as normal. So they're going to burn through cards a little faster, but they need some help.
Right. So, 75, to me, would feel a little bit better. I don't know about you two, but I certainly was sitting there struggling at the end to find the last couple of cards that I was going to end up throwing at. There were some that were a stretch. It's hard to go ahead.
I was gonna say I definitely remember having to make a couple, like, I guess I'll run this card decisions.
Although this game is in its 10th year now, we just don't have that many cards relative to a lot of other, physical trading card games. And that just, I mean, we've had for a good portion of the life of this game one set a year.
Which are not as big as some other CCGs, that's fair. But I think there's another slightly different thing about the cards that are produced versus, and we keep bringing up Magic as the example here because it's the
thing that we're kind of mimicking or riffing on, and that's true. Right? Which is that in Magic, a single card is usually going to be less impactful than a single card in MLP. There's a lot of reasons why that is, but having even just a 2-power body in a game of MLP can be worth more than having a single creature in Magic, unless that creature is, actively using some kind of powerful ability or trigger or whatever it happens to be.
Right, and Pony doesn't really print 2-power vanilla friends anymore because they're not good enough.
Right. So most of the things that we're running, even for entry, have some advantage. They're either over efficient in power or they come with some other ability.
Right. And there's another facet to this that I think is going to be far more relevant when we get to the multiplayer bit, which is the kinds of abilities that are printed in Pony don't necessarily have the richness of interaction.
Right. The game still needs to try to be accessible to people, and as a result, a lot of the complexity that you can normally explore with new keywords and new mechanics and all of that, which we do to an extent, that envelope is not pushed nearly as hard for this game as it could be.
I think that's largely because I don't really need bigger headaches than already exist. Let's talk about Royal Family.
I mean, that's part of it. Can I tell you why I really think it is? As weird as this might sound, I think it's an art constraint thing. We could come up with mechanics and design space and exploration for this game that could last years. But it's very, very difficult to get the theming right with some of the ideas that you'd normally have for a competitive game, given the source material we have to work with.
Right, because we've got adorable little ponies that are, trying to just be happy.
Right.
And occasionally some crazy little pony is just like, I'm going to suck all the magic out of Equestria.
And we're like, oh, thank you, we've been waiting to print like 5 cards that would use you as a character.
Anyway, Cozy's a psychopath.
Yeah. So entry obviously is the biggest challenge, as we mentioned earlier, for oversized decks. You think about in a standard deck, you're running probably 8 to 9 pieces of secondary color entry, assuming you're just running a 2-color deck. So that amounts to about 20% of your deck. If you're running 9 pieces of entry, it's 20% of your deck. We were struggling to get into the low teens here. So it is a marked decrease. And that's not even counting the decks that want to run more than 2 colors, right? You run 1 color or 2 colors, okay, it's the 2-color thing is still going to be challenging, but the monocolor thing, obviously, pretty straightforward. You start running into 3 colors, 4 colors, you only have so many universal entry tools. What are you going to have, right? Smooze, Kevin, Clues Down,
we basically
Flam,
counted them, right? Because there's about 10.
And then the colorless event. Yeah, something like that. And then that's all you've got. And you've got to have the right one at the right time. And that's tricky. That's tricky to do. So that's one of the things that's also weird about having the 100 cards is if you're really wanting to explore the fun space, if you're really wanting to let people just kind of go wild and really treat this as more of a casual format, where you can do a bunch of weird things, it becomes hard to let people do much of anything without just being single-minded in their focus if they want to be able to play the game, given the restrictions we had this first time. And the other thing that holds that back is, again, we scaled one part of this game, but we didn't scale the other. We scaled the deck size like we would have going to MTG, but MTG also doubles your life total. We did nothing with the point threshold. So given the lack of consistency you face when you're trying to explore multicolor options, and given the fact that the end game marker...
You want to crack the AT throttle a little bit?
Well, there's a couple things you can do. Cracking the AT throttle is one thing, but if you still only need 15 points to win the game, then that's, it still makes it the fastest way to win. Just get to 15. Stop trying to hold your opponent off when you have so much less consistency than you would in any other constructed format. It seems better to just sit there and say, I'm going to play mono blue, or I'm going to play mono pink, or I'm going to play mono yellow, or whatever it happens to be. Right? Heck, you can even just play Big Orange if you want to. Big Orange is going to be threatening. Talk about Ivory. You were mentioning Thunderlane being a difficult card to answer. What about 333 Granny Smith? What about any of their diligence stuff, right?
Oh yeah, that's going to be
It
funny.
always comes down to 333 Granny Smith.
That's because that card is dumb and you know it.
No. The dumb card is Applejack Foreground Pony.
Yes.
This is a silver bordered card where the boosted side just says your characters have Diligent 3.
Yes. So perhaps if we're looking to scale the deck size, we also want to scale the win condition. Maybe increase the points required to win, by a percentage. Say bring it up to 21 points or something like that, right? And then although this would make the game last longer, if we're looking at Commander as the analog for this, most Commander games last longer anyway, for another reason we'll talk about here in one moment. But you have a higher life total, you have less consistency with your deck, you're playing longer games because you want to play your big, flashy, expensive cards that you can't play in any other constructed format. That might mean having to rebalance AT thresholds for this game, or just add a new one. There's a lot of space to mess with the rules there, but all of that's really going to depend on if the community as a whole is interested in exploring this space. And it's tricky when you have the same people putting out content every week telling you, we had fun doing this, we would play this again, if you haven't done it yourself. So I would encourage anyone who liked those games or likes exploring new formats, if you liked Bugle's Silver Spanner games when he would run those under the alternate rule sets, give this a shot. Try building a list and try asking people for games in Discord and, adjust the rules as you see fit. Maybe try a reduced deck limit at the start and, go from there. And then we come to the tricky part, Ara, which you hinted at earlier. So I'll let you talk about that one.
Wow, I can't go anywhere near in depth as you probably can. I don't and haven't participated in Highlander games, but normally Highlander games are multiplayer. It's not 2 people. It's 3, 4, maybe 5. And a lot of the interesting things that go on in those games is interactions between characters that aren't necessarily, between players that aren't necessarily like directly attacking each other. They're playing friends out with global abilities that mess with what's going on in the political situation on the other side of the board. And that's another huge part of that, is it's politics. It's, hey, I won't attack you if... And you get to form these little alliances and factions within the game. And of course, backstabbing. Cozy Glow shows her face again.
That to me is one of the most fun parts of playing Commander, is, yeah, you can play the janky decks and you can go find your, red, black, I'm running 15 different infinite combos in here, which I did, and I had fun doing it. Or you can just play, 3-color good stuff, or you can play group hug, or you can play, prison. You can play all these different formats, but ultimately what you're playing is in many cases less relevant.
Well, what you're doing is you're playing the other players against each other.
Right. What you're doing is less relevant, or what you're playing is less relevant than how you're playing it. You know what this is like? This is like in old school MMOs when threat tables were still a thing. You're having to manage your aggro is what you're having to do. Because if you pull threat, all of a sudden the boss, in this case, all your other opponents, turn around and whap you in the face, and then you're dead. But you want to still perform well, so you want to get as close as possible. I like that analogy. I'm proud of that analogy.
Right. You got to figure out how to sit here and be, be a good changeling. Screw everything up without actually getting, noticed for screwing everything up.
The difficulty in doing that in MLP, of course, is that we have inconsistent wording on cards, especially going back into those older sets. And sometimes you're going to look at a card and say, the wording on this one is very clear for how it is supposed to function in multiplayer. And other times you'll look at a card and say, so is this every opponent? Is it just one opponent? Do I choose? Do they choose? What goes on here? And you look over to the judge, and the judge just kind of shrugs and then walks away. So that's probably the biggest obstacle.
Yeah, I think the relative lack of global modifiers and global modifiers that do weird and interesting things is also a potential stumbling block here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all the stuff has really been one player focused. You're either dealing with one specific threat your opponent has, or you are playing a specific threat. So
right, and that goes back to the comments about trying to keep within the theme of adorable little ponies and trying to keep the game relatively accessible.
what do you think, Ivory? Do you think that provided the multiplayer support was there, that this format would be more fun as a single player or multiplayer? Which do you think you'd enjoy more?
That is hard to say because I actually have never played an EDH game that's multiplayer to completion. So, I'm not sure.
And then neither have I, although I've also had the chance to participate in a lot of multiplayer pony things.
In
Right.
concept, I would like the idea of a multiplayer game, like with 3+ players. The problem is the 1v1 games can take a while. I mean, the 3+ games could potentially take even longer, so there might be more of a time commitment there.
Right,
Almost certainly. Villain Challenge, we had to set a hard time limit at 2 hours, so.
and it went to that pretty consistently.
Yep.
Unless you were doing like one of the 2 or 3 decks that was just like, okay, I'm gonna go online. And then Nightmare Moon gets back into a corner and scarred for life.
Yeah, I think if this was being run at a convention, some in-person event, it would probably be best to just set aside a block of time and not run it like an organized Swiss tournament where you set people up into multiplayer pods at the beginning and those pods play, and if the pods finish in time, then you switch them around a bit.
Yeah. I don't think it's something that a tournament structure would be applicable to at all. This is, as was mentioned earlier, far more light and casual and, almost flippant, because you're sitting here just being like, 45 card list? Nah. Watch this.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was a lot of discussion on this. Hopefully we'll end up getting some feedback from players either here in chat or in Discord later who decide to try it for themselves. In the meantime, you want to play some more traditional cards, we got a few good options for you.
Is it plug time?
It's plug time.
It's plug time. Okay, let's see. Plug number 1. There's an online con happening in, what is that, 2 weeks? It's about 2 weeks.
Yes, 2 weeks.
Okay, so the online con will have the game updates applied to it. So we're doing the rules about getting an extra action token if you're going second, getting to choose whether or not you go first or second, and of course, getting some love spread around with a bunch of reformations. So if you're sick of blue and yellow doing blue and yellow things, I've got good news for you.
They're not going to do as many blue and yellow things?
They're not going to do as many blue and yellow things.
That's the hope, anyway.
Then, of course, with the draft simulators being available, we will be returning to doing that because that was fun and we need more of it. So, the usual schedule of events for an online con. We're doing draft on Saturday and constructed on Sunday. And we've tried to time these to make sure that they're available for people living pretty much anywhere in the Americas and Europe.
It's the hope, anyway.
So, if you've been itching for some draft, yes.
And then...
But that's not the only plug. We have another plug.
do have another plug.
In case...
It's going to be a BabsCon.
Yeah, in case playing cards online wasn't enough cards. Come to BabsCon. Play cards in person.
It'll be a grand old time.
So, April 7th through 8th. I need to go buy my flights.
7th through 9th.
Yeah, you should probably do that before the prices skyrocket.
Yeah.
We'll have Adventure, we'll have some other formats, we'll probably have Cube. We'll be in Sand Pebble, you know where to find us.
The usual place. I think we've been in that same one room for... I don't even know for how long.
Yep. It's a good room.
Yeah, actual con. It's going to be fun.
Woo-hoo. For now, though, it will wrap up our discussion for today. We would like to give a big shout out to all of our patrons on Patreon. Thank you so much for your regular support. If you aren't currently a patron and you enjoy what we do, please consider donating. Doing so does enable us to continue making content like this and lets you earn some great perks as a bonus. We've had several people over the last couple of weeks who have just earned those perks for the first time, so thank you very much. If you have comments or questions you'd like to send our way, feel free to reach out to us through Facebook, Twitter, or email. If you're a patron, you can also chat live with us on Slack any day, anytime. Finally, if you're looking to watch any of our previous videos, including tournament recordings, you can find them on our YouTube channel, linked just below the stream. With all that said, thank you to each and every one of our viewers, both here now and watching this recording later. We are, as always, Commentary is Magic. I am, as always, Grand Paws. Big Cheese is here in spirit.
Arcat and...
Ivory Starlight.
There, we almost got through one without any snark.
It was very close.
Almost.
We'll see you all next time.
Bye.